All right, let's look at some examples of applying limits and looking at rational functions. So sketch this graph as we've previously done. So I'm going to start by thinking about my vertical asymptotes. That's going to be where the denominator is equal to 0. So I'll have plus or minus 2. So let's go ahead and put in our vertical asymptotes. There's negative 2 and 2. I'm going to have a horizontal asymptote where since degree of numerator is less than the degree of denominator, y equals 0 will be my horizontal asymptote. Okay, now let's look at intercepts. My x-intercept is when y is 0. That's going to be when the numerator is 0, so x equals -1. My y-intercept is when x is 0, so plug that in and I get 1 over -4 or -1/4. So it seems to me that this graph is probably going to go like this. And the question is, what's happening over here? Will it be above or below? Above or below. I know it's not going to cross the x-axis again because I have only one x-intercept. So I want to think about my limits, but this is also asking us to use our graph to answer the limit statements. So I can sort of, the things I can do is I could plug in some values to help me imagine what's happening, but I can also think about these limits in terms of what's happening. So as x approaches 2 from the right-hand side, so approaching 2 from the right-hand side, the question is, am I going to be positive infinity or negative infinity? So let's think about what happens here. So if I approach 2 from the right-hand side, it's like I'm plugging in 2.1. So thinking about that, if I plugged in 2.1, I would get a positive number on the top, and now 2.1 squared is going to be just bigger than 4, so I'm dividing by a positive decimal. So positive divided by positive is going to make positive infinity. So I'm going to approach this way. Thinking about what happens here, I'm going to think about the limit as x goes to positive infinity. Well, as x goes to positive infinity, I'm going to have infinity over infinity squared. This is going to be much, much bigger than this. So I'm dividing a number by a much, much bigger number means I'm going to go approach 0. Both of those values will be positive. So I'm going to approach 0 from the positive side. So the limit as x approaches infinity of y is going to be positive infinity, and I'm approaching it from above. All right, let's check this one out, knowing that I suspect it's going to go this way. So the limit as x approaches, well, I don't have, oh, here I've got my -2 from the left and -2 from the right. So approaching -2 from the left side would be over here. So -2 from the left side, -2 from the left, I'm looking at this region over here. So what's going to happen there, I'm thinking about values that are like x equals -2.1. So that's going to be negative on top, positive on the bottom. So negative divided by positive would make a negative value, tells me that I'm approaching negative infinity on this side. All right, looking at what's happening as x goes towards negative infinity, well, I'm going to have a negative infinity on top. Negative infinity squared would be positive infinity and would be much, much bigger. So I'm going to end up approaching 0, but from the negative side. Those values are always going to be negative. So on this side, it's going to look like this. So I'm going to approach 0, but from above. Here we didn't finish filling in our limit. As we approach 2 from the right-hand side, I'm approaching positive infinity. So that one is positive infinity. As I approach -2 from the left-hand side, I approach negative infinity. And now as I approach -2 from the positive side, so I'm coming this way, we know -1 gave us 0. If I think about -1.99, I'm going to end up with a negative on top, And in the bottom, negative 1.99 squared will be positive, but it will be less than 4, but just less than 4. So I'll have a negative over a very small negative decimal. So negative divided by a negative decimal is going to make a large positive number, so I must approach positive infinity. And I suspect that I'm going to go down this way. So this one was positive infinity. I suspect that my limit as x goes towards positive 2 from the left side should be negative infinity. So let's check that out. If I approached positive 2 from the left side, that would be like positive 1.99. So I would end up with a positive over a negative. Positive number over negative small decimal would be negative infinity. So that does end up being true. And this is not very clear. So negative infinity.